Hi there, Nick Dutch again, continuing our discussion of Aleister Crowley's Magic in Theory and Practice, so that you can understand the message which Crowley was trying to communicate to basically us Earthlings. We're continuing reading through the theorems which reflect back to the postulate of what Crowley called magic. And this is page XVI. Point number 13. Every man is more or less aware that his individuality comprises several orders of existence, even when he maintains that his subtler principles are merely symptomatic of the changes in his grosser vehicle. A similar order may be assumed to extend throughout nature. Okay, so if I have a foodstuff which disagrees with me, I could have a cheese dream. That's one way of seeing it. Secondly, my mind has got lots of different sections in it because of the various... Sorry, forgive me there. Because of the various different sections of my psychological and neurological anatomy. Alright? There are bits of me which run my heart, my circulation, my blood pressure, my liver, my kidneys, my digestion, and all the rest of it. And essentially through meditation one can learn to affect those bit by bit. Man is capable of being and using anything which he perceives, for everything that he perceives is in a certain sense of his part of his being. He may thus subjugate the whole universe of which he is conscious to his individual will. You note he says the whole universe of which he is conscious. So that means everything that you've found out through your reading, through your research, through the videos you watched on YouTube, through your experimentation. Alright? All these things become part of your being because you take them in through your senses and you process them in your brain, if you're capable of processing things in your brain, that is. So you can use ideas that you find out, you can use tools that you go and buy to try and help you out. Every force in the universe, so that means your own perceived universe that you've experienced as well as the bigger universe, is capable of being transformed into any other kind of force by using suitable means. Note he says suitable means. There is thus an inexhaustible supply of any particular kind of force that we may need. For instance, if I was really keen on changing the environmental movements, I could stand up and be a speaker for the environmental movements and direct the action and activity of people who follow that movement towards any particular goal. That's just an example. The application of any given force affects all the orders of being which exist in the objects to which it is applied, whichever of those orders is directly affected. So if you affect something, it will affect something in the thing being affected. If you affect the Conservative Party, it will affect some of the people in the Conservative Party. If you take out a financial or a legal thing against a company, you'll be affecting all the people inside that company and all the other businesses that company is affected by, in terms of supplier and also provision of services. Okay. So you could actually affect the whole economy to a certain degree through affecting some small aspect of it. A man may learn to use any force so as to serve any purpose by taking advantage of the above theorems. Stands to reason. Alright, so essentially you can do the right things with the right ways. He provides the example of using a razor blade to make yourself vigilant over your speech by cutting yourself every time you say an unpleasant word. Alright, so it's a question of using self-discipline. But that's only one particular example. I personally would not recommend that to anyone. I would say that if you have thought about the tools that you're using and how they can be applied, you can use them in the right way. He may attract to himself any force of the universe by making himself a fit receptacle for it, establishing a connection with it and arranging conditions so that its nature compels it to flow towards him. Alright, so if I want to receive money, I can turn myself into a business person, I can establish the right supplier and also client-based connections, I can promote myself in the right way, and I can then earn money because I will then become a well-known person in business as a result of networking and promotion, let's say. It's all quite rational stuff, alright? A man's sense of himself as a separate from and opposed to the universe is a bar to his conducting its currents. It insulates him. So essentially you've got to be a part of something in order to be able to create a change. So if I was a part of the environmental movement, and I had conformed to some of the norms of the environmental movement in terms of clothing, speech, the way that I behaved, the knowledge that I had, I could then be a part of it and then to create a change in it to a certain degree. Just by example, a man can only attract and employ the forces for which he is really fitted. So essentially, if I'm not designed to be an accountant, alright, then I can't be an accountant. But if I am designed to be a tarot reader, then essentially I will be a tarot reader, which is what I do. Alright? There is no limit to the extent of the relations of any man with the universe in essence. For as soon as a man makes himself one with any idea, the means of measurement cease to exist. By his power to utilize that force is limited by his mental power and capacity and by the circumstances of his human environment. Alright, so if something gets in your way, you're not going to be able to do it. Alright? But his power to utilize that force is limited. You know, things can get in your way by his mental power and capacity, so get yourself a bloody good education, and by the circumstances of his human environment. So if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're going to have a problem. Every individual is essentially sufficient to himself, but he is unsatisfactory to himself unless he has established himself in the right relation with the universe. Find out who you are, what you're about, and essentially be the best at what you are. Keep it simple. Then he goes on to say, magic is the science of understanding oneself, which of course is what all these things are about, and one's conditions, and is the art of applying that understanding into action. Alright, so do stuff. He provides the example of a golf club, and some golf clubs are better for other things. Every man has the indefensible right to be what he is, fine, but on the other hand everything else he's written has been about change and understanding and learning, so don't stay with what you are, and if you think there's something wrong with you, then find out what that thing is and work on it. Every man must do magic each time that he acts or even thinks, since a thought is an internal act whose influence ultimately affects action, though it may not do so at the time. Alright, so that's essentially a question of your thoughts can affect your actions. So you've got to understand your thoughts, you've got to be able to control them, you've got to be able to discipline them, so essentially you can do the right thing. And that's another reason to use prayer and meditation. Every man has a right, the right of self-preservation, to fulfill himself to the utmost. And essentially that means continually improve yourself. That doesn't mean to say you've got to go around hurting anyone. There's nothing in there to say you've got to hurt anyone. Every man should make magic the keynote of his life. He should learn its laws and live by them. But considering that Crowley believed that magic was to be and to do, in this particular case it's a question of learn about life and live by the laws of life. So that involves the law of the land, the law of your society, the laws of your community. Every man has a right to fulfill his own will without being afraid that it may interfere with that of others. For if he is in the proper place, it is the fault of others that they interfere with him. For instance, and this is like an example that's happened in my recent business dealings, someone approached me to buy some meditation CDs from me in quite a large quantity, and essentially he was welshing on the amount paid, and I decided no, I wasn't going to deal with him because it was his fault that he was approaching me, and I decided no, I'm not going to sell to you. Again, very practical, rational, down-to-earth stuff. Okay? And that's essentially Crowley's theorems of magic and Crowley's postulate on magic, which is all, if you think about it, about learning how to think rather than learning what to think. From that we can say that Crowley's goal in writing those words was to give you the ability to be able to understand your life, to give you the ability to be able to be fulfilled through the application of thought, intelligence and activity. And I'll leave you with that right now. I may do another video to explain a little more about where I stand with these laws that Crowley's written in Magic and Theory and Practice, and I'll take it from that point.